People, welcome to this talk on how to ask for what you want. Now, you probably know when a dog wants to go for a walk, they tend not to hesitate. Oh, I'd better not. They might be busy. My owner he might have a lot on. He might not feel like it. I think I'll keep quiet. Better not. Dogs tend not to do that. They're cheerful optimists, as far as I can tell. They'll just go for it. And they understand that if they get a rejection, it's not the end of the world. There's always a chance for a walk later on. So dogs will keep going. And I'd like today to share with you, I'm actually going to share 12, 10 plus 2, 12 ways that we can perhaps help ourselves to ask for what we want more often than we currently do. Not all the time, but more often. As many of you know, I'm Eric Winters. I am a self-leadership coach, and it's my pleasure to run workshops in organizations helping professionals to do more of their most courageous work, collaborating courageously, speaking up courageously. And I do that by helping people to develop skills. They're skills in the field of emotional intelligence to help people meet life's challenges more effectively. The challenges they want, new roles, bigger remits, developing new skills, stepping up, speaking in front of people, challenging groupthink, but also the challenges that perhaps they don't want, because every life is going to be full of challenges we'd rather not have. I'm the author of Swipe Right on Your Best Self, Simple Steps to a Bolder Life with Fewer Regrets, and there will be a draw at the end of this workshop for one of these books. So someone who's here will be getting a copy of my book. So let me ask you, if you could type, cheers, Mark, could I ask you to type into the chat box, what's one thing that you would have liked that you have not asked for in life? It could be anything. It could be a small thing. I might put my hand up and admit to not asking in my professional life in the past for opportunities. So work in business, there are times I don't ask people for the business. I'm like, oh, better not. They might not like it. They might think I'm pushy. I make up excuses. So something I can own up to, I have not asked for business. What sort of things might you have, Rachel? Sometimes you don't ask for help. Oh, me too. We should start a club. Yeah, not asking, just going it alone. Independence, yes. Help and support, Bernadette, yeah. Asking for clients to commit, Heidi. Yeah, we don't do this, yeah. Asking for more time, asking for more time. Asking for real uninterrupted time to get the full context of work situations and explain the situation. Georgia also asking for help and support. There's quite a few of us in that camp. Asking for referrals, yes. Yeah, I get a sense, well, I've been trying to get better at it, but yes, sometimes I hold back too. Asking for advice, asking for a higher hourly rate, promotions, opportunities. Wonderful. Look, we're all in the same boat, people. Okay, so let me ask you, what do you think stopped you from asking? What holds us back? Why don't we ask for what we want? What are your first thoughts? They might, Catherine, you're right. Not only might they say no, but somehow, at least if I can speak for myself, it would somehow be intolerable if they said no. Somehow I couldn't cope. It would be too painful and permanent. Fear of rejection, yes, rejection, shame, or fear of rejection is coming up quite a lot. Fear of being a pest, not wanting to look too greedy, fear of refusal. There's a lot of fear is holding us back, not backing yourself enough, Jenny. Yeah, but not wanting to look pushy. Embarrassment, Penny. Yeah, me too. And what could be worse than feeling embarrassed? We hold back. Yeah, if people say no, we make conclusions about what it must mean. Come to those conclusions quite quickly. And yet sometimes we're not sure how would we formulate that request? And sometimes it's just too much trouble. Okay, thank you for that. So, what's holding a lot of us back is fear at some level. We are an anxious animal. If you're a human being, you know this. It comes woven into your genetics. Everyone comes with a full set of anxiety circuits, full and functional. We are anxious. We're often worried. We often have a whisper of worry in the background. And on top of that, we are very reactive. We're very quick to respond to potential threats in the environment. It doesn't take very much for us to sense a threat. We're reactive. We are reluctant to move into circumstances where there is uncertainty. We don't like uncertainty. We don't like feeling uh, that risk. We don't like that flavor of threat. We don't like feeling bad, bottom line. And of course, we are highly risk averse. And when we think of risks, we don't think of the risk of things going well. That doesn't occur to us. We tend to think about the risk of things going badly. So we are bad risk averse. And we hold back. We hold back as a consequence. So if we can take steps to manage our reactivity, dial it down, if we can manage our willingness to feel some uncertainty when we're going for what we want, that'll reduce our reluctance. And if we can accept that actually there is a risk not only of things going badly, but of things going extremely well, and that'll all help us to ask for what we want, the referrals, the pay rises, additional time, connections for work, whatever it is, more often. So I've got 12 ways you can do that. Number one, it's got to be said, as and we've got a lot of coaches I know on the call today. Coaches, including myself, we have a habit at times of going straight for psychological approaches. We want to work with beliefs and internal schemas. Actually, something we should never overlook is physiology. Our bodies will determine the extent to which we feel courageous, the extent to which we are reactive, particularly what we eat, how we move, how often we move, and the quality of our sleep. Of these three, sleep has the biggest impact on our reactivity. During the night, every time you have a burst of REM sleep, when you're sleeping, when you're dreaming, you actually get an emotional tune-up during the REM sleep. So you become less reactive as a result. It's because of the tune-up that happens during REM sleep. But we all have about five to six bursts of REM sleep every 90 minutes throughout the night. But those durations of REM sleep, they get longer as the night wears on. So if you cheat yourself of your last hour's worth of sleep, you are losing the most valuable part of REM sleep. Remember, the REM sleep is short at the beginning of the night and it's longer towards the end of the night. We need our REM sleep. People who don't get as much REM sleep as they need are more reactive the next day. They spot threats, things seem bigger. They can't see things in perspective. So they blow threats out of proportion. Everything is harder. So the first thing to say, take care of your physiology. It makes a real difference to your blood chemistry and your neurology, and you will be less reactive as a result. It matters. Number two, for reducing reactivity, is practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness, as I think just about everyone here on the call will know, is a practice of training our noticing skills, training our attention to be more aware of what's in our minds and outside, that's as observers, to notice it happening in real time. It is a skill which dials down reactivity. It does many other things as well. But people who practice just a few minutes of mindfulness every day operate in a higher performance state. They're less reactive. They see things for as they are. They're better able to make decisions. Now, there are many apps. You can learn mindfulness, of course, in a training course. I've done MBSR training twice. It's an 8-week course, highly recommended if you want to really deep dive into the world of mindfulness. That's MBSR. But of course, there are a lot of apps that we can use too. I especially like Waking Up, Calm, and Headspace. My favorite is Waking Up. It comes with an awful lot of lectures and tutorials and interviews with people. And just to let you know, you can get Waking Up for free if money is tight, just by asking. You just ask Sam Harris, who manages that your money's a bit tight. I'd like it for free, please. He's very open about this. He will not want to see photocopies of bank statements. No, he will simply give you a free yearly subscription. So I recommend all those three. They're all really good. Number three, if you're going to ask for something that is important to you, something that you want, it's going to help if you know what's important about it, if you can have a felt sense of why it matters. So if you're asking for perhaps a change of behavior in a partner, in an intimate relationship, why does that matter to you? What's important about that? If you're asking, you've got a request you'd like to make about business, what's important about that? Why does it really matter? Asking for what we want is always going to have some degree of discomfort around it. We can't be completely, totally fearless. There are no human beings like that. Well, they're unwell. The people that have no fear are not well. So we're all going to have just a little flavor of fear. So if it's going to be uncomfortable, you need to know why it's going to be worthwhile. So understand for yourself, what is it that's important? And understand that, get a felt sense of that before you ask the question. Number 4, Marie Forleo. Can we get a show of hands from people who are perhaps familiar with Marie's work? Have you read her book, maybe? Everything is Figure-Outable? No, she's an American entrepreneur, alarmingly successful in her field. And she wrote a book recently called Everything is Figure-Outable. The ideas in it were well known. If you're in the coaching world, they're well known to you, but she did have a very nice turn of phrase. I want to give her credit for that. She expresses things very succinctly and powerfully. And Marie says everything worthwhile is hard in life, excruciatingly hard. And this just speaks to the fact that actually when things really matter to us, there's often going to be some discomfort. It's going to go hand in hand. Russ Harris says life is going to be painful. There is the pain of growth when you're asking for what you want, you're trying new things, you're moving into new territory, developing your business, developing your relationships. There's that pain, the pain of growth, and there's also the pain of stagnation, the pain of not asking, the pain of staying where you are. So leaving our comfort zones is hard. That's just the way it is. It comes at price. So we need to know, what are we getting for that? So I said before, what matters? So we do need to understand, okay, what is this for? What is it in the service of? And we also need to understand, what is it we're willing, what are we willing, what discomfort are we willing to experience in order to get more of what we want? It's hard to do things that are worthwhile. There is a price. We need to figure out the price. And if we're willing to pay it, the uncertainty, the discomfort, they might not like me, then we need to pay it. We need to figure out the price and then pay it. Or don't. That's okay too. You can make a decision. Actually, you know what? Getting this is not that important to me. That's okay. No need to beat yourself up about it. There are times it's not worth paying the price. But if it is, then be willing to pay it. You're all honest people here. I don't believe anyone here would go into Coles or Woolies, look at the price of something, and then say, no, I'm not paying that. I'll just put it in my pocket. No, I want to get that for nothing. No, of course not. You look at the price and you make a decision. Yeah, that's fair enough. I'll pay that. Or, that's way too much. I'm not paying that for one piece of cheese. Or what have you. I won't pay that. Personally speaking, I will pay a lot for cheese, especially, I will, especially if it's a good British cheddar. Just love it. Number 6, good question to ask yourself is, what would a courageous person do? Now, the character on the left, you'll all know. It's very hard to go through this life without bumping into Indiana Jones, but you may not know the other two characters. Can anyone recognize, for 5 points, can anyone recognize the character in the middle? In the chat box. Can anyone recognize the character? There's 5 points going for this. It's not an image we see. It's not Edith Cowan, Mark. It's actually Helen Keller. Helen Keller, who at 19 months of age went blind and deaf, completely blind. And it wasn't until later in life that she learned how to read and write by someone actually writing letters on her hand as they had her touch things. Incredible. She wrote 14 books, traveled to 30 countries, and was an advocate for the rights for the disabled. Extraordinary woman. Such challenging circumstances, and yet she was able to really have a phenomenally successful life. The lady on the right is Emmeline Pankhurst. Well done, Rachel. You very nicely done. Yeah, exactly. You beat me to it. Rachel got it right. Emmeline Pankhurst. And Rachel, who is Emmeline Pankhurst? You can come on audio or feel free to type it in.
Oh, hang on. Oh, I'm giving away my British education here, but she was the suffragette. She led the suffragette movement in the UK.
Absolutely. She set it up and led the suffragette movement. Very bold, very courageous woman. And unfortunately, she died just a few weeks before it was passed into law that all women 21 and over could vote. But she is primarily responsible for that massive change. Very brave woman. So when you've got a challenge on, at times it will help you to say, well, actually, what would Emmeline do about this? I'm feeling a bit anxious about asking for a bit more time. What would Emmeline's approach be? Or Helen, deaf and blind. And, what would she say? What might her advice be? Sometimes what we need to do is get out of our own skin and get into someone else's skin and see it from their perspective. Or, of course, what would Indy do under these circumstances? Pick your own courageous hero. Find out who is a role model for you. Have a think about it. Who do you look up to? Who do you say, that's courage? And at times when you are being challenged, ask yourself that question. What would my hero do? Next skill, number 7. It's knowing what you are telling yourself, becoming aware. While we tell ourselves stories, oh, they won't like it, they'll think I'm pushy, I just know they'll say no. Whilst we're in our heads, absorbed in these stories we tell ourselves, we're very vulnerable to believing them without any questioning. We just go along with them. We take them as evidence. So the first, as absolute certainties. So one of the first things we need to do is get better at recognizing what it is we're telling ourselves. The good news is, if you practice mindfulness, you'll get better and better at being able to do that in real time. As you tell yourself things, you'll be able to become an observer of your thoughts. You'll notice the story. This gives you choice, as you can notice these things in real time. Number 8. Now, we spend about 50% of our lives in a virtual reality. It's like we've got one of those VR sets on. And when we've got these, while we're daydreaming, while we're in our own internal virtual reality, as I was saying earlier, the things we imagine seem very real. They have enormous influence over our behaviors. What we need is a way of, at times, not always, but at times, choosing to take that virtual reality headset off, to come out of our minds, out of our daydreaming, and out of our thoughts, and come into the real world, where we don't throw away the VR set, it's still there. The stories are all still in there, but we can also see the real world, and we're in a better position now to be able to choose what we're going to do. So I want to get from being in our heads to being in the world. It's called grounding. There's an approach. It's called grounding. Sometimes it's called anchoring. You might know it by that term. And it generally follows 3 steps. And these are the things that I train in my workshops. I train people how to notice when they're in your head. And I see that someone is experimenting with annotation, and that's my fault for not disabling it. So I'm going to ask whoever is experimenting with annotation not to do any more. Maybe I will even, no, we'll leave that. Number 2, notice your body. So first of all, we notice we're in our head. Then we need to notice our body. We can do this by putting our fingertips together, just feeling our fingertips. Or you might push your feet into the floor, just feel the floor. You could hold on to the desk, just touch the desk, but we're just engaging with our sense of touch. Finally, we notice the wider world. So we've touched, we've got into our bodies, and then we're just looking around. And you might want to look for 3 things that you can see. What are 3 things that you can hear? What are 3 things that you can touch? But we want to move our attention in a phased approach from this virtual reality into our bodies and out into the world. From that position, we're much better placed to make wiser choices about if we should ask that question and how we're going to ask it. Thought taming is the next one. Thought taming. So these thoughts we have, oh, I know they won't like it. They'll think I'm pushy. They can be very, very powerful. They're very influential. And what we want to do is shrink these thoughts down. We want to bring them down to size. We can't get rid of them. Very unlikely we can get rid of them completely. But we do want to bring them down. Here's 3 ways we can shrink our unhelpful thoughts. 1, just write it down. Take that thought, write it down on a piece of paper, and look at it. Get it out of your head and down in front of you. Number 2, you can say to yourself, I'm having the thought that they won't like it. Or I'm having the thought that they'll think I'm pushy. I'm thinking the thought that it will be unbearably embarrassing. Just putting that little sentence in front gives you a little bit of distance, from the thought. It just makes it a little bit smaller. Third strategy is to say, in my case, I might say, Eric is having the thought that they'll think I'm pushy. You put your own name in front. And again, it just gives you a little bit of distance. While I'm here, I'm going to give you one more technique that studies have shown has worked. It's when people who have a courageous individual, let's say it's Emmeline Pankhurst, and they might say, you know what, I'm going to embody Emmeline Pankhurst. I'm going to behave like Emmeline Pankhurst to a larger degree. And when they're in the situation and they're feeling nervous, they'll say to themselves, Emmeline is having the thought that they might not like it. So use the name of your hero, Emmeline. And the research shows that makes people even more courageous. So use the name of your hero. Remember, number 10, remember a time when you did ask and it went well. We've all asked for things in the past and we tend to forget these, but we have asked for things in the past and it went well. These people have said yes to all sorts of things you've asked for. Bring them to mind. You might even want to create a journal, a success journal of the times that you've gone for it. You've made a request and people say, yes, we can do that. What's also useful is remembering times when you have been asked. So we sometimes think, oh, if I ask someone, they'll look down at me. You know, they won't think very highly of me. They'll think I'm pushy. They'll think I'm an unpleasant person. But actually, when people have asked you for something in life, is that what you've done? Have you thought, oh, what a terrible person asking me for something? How dreadful. I can recall a time when somebody asked me out a long time ago, didn't want to go out with them. But, you know, afterwards I thought, wow, I really look up to that person. That was a courageous move. People respect those who make courageous moves, even if they don't get what they want. People will remember it. It will stand probably in your favor to have asked for that. People look up to the bold. Number 11, getting close to the end of our time. Imagine, use your imagination. By default, your imagination will tilt, if it's like most people's, towards how things might go horribly wrong when you ask for what you want, is what minds do. But you could choose, you could imagine, okay, but what if it goes well? What would that be like? Allow yourself to use your imagination to consider a future. And actually, the request went well. It went down well. People responded to you positively. Live in that future. Now, balance the playing field a little. It's tilted towards negativity. We've all got a negativity bias, but let's just balance it a little. What might it be like if they said yes? And this might surprise you, but also it's also really worthwhile considering fully, what if they did say no? What would happen then? Then what would happen? Well, then I'd be distraught for life and I'd end up in the gutter and I'd be homeless and penniless and miserable. And there's something about assuming the absolute worst case scenario that will actually have us sit back and think, okay, well, I'd probably survive though. Even the worst case scenario, it will probably be okay. Fears paradoxically get smaller when we think of the worst case scenario. You wouldn't think it, but they do. Number 12, the most important tool for big choices. I've got a quote I'd like to read you. Here we go. Here's the quote. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you're going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. Now that's Steve Jobs reminding us all that actually we are going to lose everything already. We're already in a sense doomed. So go for it. Go for it while you can. Ask that question. Live your life. Here is the summary. All of those 12 things that'll be in the slides, which I will share. And now what I'd like to do is, we'll have questions afterwards, but I'd just like to do the book draw. The book draw. So I am just going to pull up here the number of people we have on the call. It's 1, 2, 3. We have 21 people on the call. I'm now going to generate randomly a number between 1 and 21. And the answer is, jumped away, 1 and 21, generate number, it's 20, which means it is Siobhan Turney. Siobhan, you have won another copy of Swipe Right on Your Best Self.
Listen, Eric, I am
Yes.
more than happy. I've got numerous copies that I've just bought, so I'm very happy to donate it to somebody else.
Really? Well, isn't that kind? That's very kind, Siobhan.
It's a really good book.
Oh,
so someone else will get the lovely.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to generate another number here, and this time it's Alison Jane. Alison Jane, you are the winner. Alison, could I ask you to email me a postal address, and I will get.
I will. I'm delighted. It's so kind of the other participant. Thank
It's
you very
Siobhan.
much, Siobhan.
Siobhan, who has a wonderful podcast. So look up Siobhan Turney's name. Yes, Siobhan, what is the name of your podcast, please?
It's a Reset Hub.
Reset Hub. People, thank you very much, Reset Hub. We have just come to the end of this workshop. Thank you for joining me. All of the skills we've talked about today, they're skills that are developed by practicing. You don't really learn them by knowing them. They're things that you practice. I'd encourage everyone to explore. Pick one thing out of the 12 that you think might help nudge up your courage. Which one thing out of the 12 are you willing to experiment with? Give that a shot. I'd love to hear how you go.